going on, everybody? Welcome back to MLB Swing for the Fences here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel. It's Tuesday, July 1st, about at the halfway point of the MLB season. We got a scheduled 10-game slate on our hands. We have lost one game on the slate. Mets and Milwaukee postponed due to weather and kind of weather everywhere on the eastern seaboard, Steve. So we're going to have to monitor that as we get closer to lock a couple hours from now, but we'll break it all down, give our thoughts on weather, pitchers, stacks, everything else on what looks, I think, to both of us like kind of a tough pitching slate. So fun one to break it down. As always, you guys know who we are. I'm DC. He's Steve Boyden. We're here as usual on Tuesday, and we'll do our best to deliver the winners to the people. Steve, how you doing on this Tuesday afternoon?
Yeah, good. Nice to get the news, right before we talk about the game, so we don't talk about the Mets game for 10 minutes. Off of the slate, I think Phillies and Nats are also postponed. So like you said, the East Coast in some trouble. We'll talk about Boston and Atlanta as well. I think this is probably the most weather-impacted slate we've had in a while, maybe this season. So, and even before that, I was kind of struggling to fill out the playbook at pitching outside of a couple options. So maybe some stuff will come to us during the show. Hopefully you'll be able to talk me on to some pitchers because I don't have that deep of a pool right now going into the show.
Yeah. People that watch the show with me know I do like to spend down at pitching when possible. This looks like a tough slate to do it. Maybe we'll uncover a gem or two while we go along, but where I'm sitting right now, I don't have a ton of cheaper pitchers that I'm super confident in. Maybe something will come up. Maybe we'll get an unexpected bad lineup or notice something in a pitcher's profile that will help us get on a cheaper pitcher. But for now, a little bit tough sledding when it comes to that regard. We'll mention the weather as we go game by game, but I do think with the Mets game off the slate, I think we're mostly in the clear. Let's talk about, though, 9 games on the slate for now, and let's jump into the first one. A's and Rays, the battle of the displaced teams in Tampa Bay. A's and Rays here, of course. Shane Baz going for the Rays. Rays pitchers for me, Steve, have been kind of hard to figure out. Part of it's they pitch in this park that we don't like to use pitchers in general. Part of it's, the pitch counts can kind of be all over the place. Just haven't had a good handle on the Rays pitchers, including Shane Baz, who I really haven't used much of this year. He's been up and down, has been pretty good recently, though, and is a talent that we've liked over the last couple of years. So I do think he's interesting here at 8,800. One of the, pitchers in my somewhat small pitcher pool today. Yeah. I don't love the price tag. I don't love the park. I do think there's danger here for Shane Baz, but I do also think, 7, 8, 9 strikeouts is possible against this A's team. So for me, he's got to be at least in the mix. Jeffrey Springs, last time we talked, I think my last message about him was you advising me not to eat the Jeffrey Springs chalk. I told you I was going to do it on the slate anyway. Didn't go well for Springs. Somehow ended up with 7 fantasy points on that. Seemed like worse when you were watching the game.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised. I thought it was going to be like a negative number when I, pulled up the game log there, but I guess it wasn't that bad. I don't think he's a very good pitcher. I don't like the spot for him in particular. I do think if you're trying to find a cheap pitcher, I wouldn't be shocked to see Springs get 5 or 6 strikeouts and put up 15 fantasy points. He didn't make my write-up, but if we can't come to anything else, he could be, I think, a cheap pitcher that you could at least consider. And then I think both offenses are definitely in play here. And by the way, this park, I didn't really expect this from this Rays, new minor league park. They've got to have the most consistent weather in baseball. I think the most consistent is San Francisco, where it just doesn't matter, right? It's like the same winds blowing out 65 degrees every day. But this park seems just like it's 85 to 90 degrees, humid, and winds out to center field every single slate, which, of course, plays hitter friendly. What are you doing, Steve, with A's and Rays here?
Yeah, with us losing the Mets game, that takes one of the higher end pitchers off the slate. Shane Baz, a couple starts ago, started to throw a cutter more, DC, up to 40% last start, and has already flashed a big start from, increased usage of a new pitch. I do like when young pitchers who clearly have upside, if you watch him pitch, his stuff is great. He's trying to improve and get better. I think that's something mid-season that's interesting to monitor. He's had a bunch of high upside starts this season. They were mostly in the first month, and then was pretty bad for a bit. So it's good to see him trying to change things to improve when things weren't going his way. He's got 5 starts out of his 16 above 25 DK. I think on a tough pitching slate, a guy with that kind of upside just has to be in your pool here. The A's lineup, over the last 2 weeks against righties, 5th highest strikeout rate, bottom 5 in advanced metrics. So yeah, it's not comfortable at 8,800 given his volatility, but I think he's got to be in your pool. Really good tournament play, I think, just because of the wide range of outcomes. I will say he hasn't really pitched well at home in this park. He's got a 5.7 ERA at home, 1.42 WHIP. So I'm kind of with you. Like, it's not that comfortable, but on a slate where I don't like a ton of arms, I think I'm just going to embrace the volatility and the upside that he does have and include him in my pool. I didn't have Springs in my pool until kind of later in the day. I added him to the playbook just a little bit ago. I just want some cheap arms on this slate. We'll talk about the Dodgers later. I think they're the most expensive, good stack. So I think Springs is playable here. We'll talk about him and Hancock. This is an interesting slate because those are really, not guys that I want to be playing in spots like this, but it's just kind of a context of the slate thing. I'm not super comfortable with it, but I actually have both of these arms in my pool on this slate. If you're not using Springs, obviously the Tampa Bay right-handed bats led by Yandy Diaz, who just had a huge month of June, looked great. Curtis Mead is pinch hit wrist in the 2-hole, but he's super, super cheap. And then Caminero, I think, hit 10, 11 bombs in the month of June too. So it's a hot offense. It's a deep lineup. You can get catcher out of the way with Jansen, who we know has pop, especially against left-handed pitching too. So I'm going to have some Rays. I do like Shane Baz over Jeffrey Springs. If I had to, pick one or the other to be in my pool, but I will have both of these pitchers in my pool. I don't think I'm getting to A's bats. We actually just saw, I believe, a scratch in this lineup.
Wilson.
So that improves things for Baz as well. High contact bat in the top of the order. So it's not that comfortable, but I'll be on both of the pitchers here and then raise bats in my non-Springs teams.
Yeah, the Springs versus Hancock debate is one that you're not, you question your life decisions when you're having it in the first place. It's like what
How did we get here?
That have led me to even having to choose between Jeffrey Springs and Hancock, but it is a decision that I might have to make on a few teams. And it's also weird talking about these guys in terms of floor and ceiling because they're both very mediocre pitchers. But I do think Springs is clearly the upside play, and I think Hancock has the higher floor. Again, it just almost sounds ridiculous to even hear myself say something like that, but I do think it is true. And then going back to Shane Baz, I did miss the pitch change mix with him. Was on vacation for his last start, so just wasn't at all in the MLB weeds. And I frankly pride myself on catching a lot of these pitch mix changes and percentage changes. I did miss this one, but of course looked it up as you were talking about it. And man, you could not be more right. And you do not see this type of change very often. Shane Baz, in his last 2 starts, up to 40% and 38% cutter rate. And basically that all came from both the slider, which is now completely gone from his arsenal. Hasn't thrown a slider, according to Fangraphs. Fangraph stuff. What's Stuff Plus got on it? Yeah, according to Stuff Plus, which is what I use most closely, looking at arsenal changes, hasn't thrown one in 4 games, and then is also almost completely limited to changeup, which was, according to Stuff Plus at least, by far his worst pitch.
Yep.
So I think that's very interesting with Shane Baz. Of course, doesn't mean he's going to have a good start tonight necessarily, but the results have been there, and he's a talented pitcher in general. So I like that information on Shane Baz. It's certainly a bump for me. Doesn't, no guarantees, but I do think that's a considerable move in his favor, as is the Jacob Wilson scratch. And yeah, Shane Baz looking more and more appealing to me. And hey, we talked about it at the top of the show, maybe talking ourselves more into some of these guys. We certainly, or maybe mostly you, just did it for me with Shane Baz, who I'm going to bump up in my pool, and maybe get some of those Jeffrey Springs shares out of there, because I don't think I want as many of those as was perhaps popping up in my early runs.
And the last thing I'll say on Springs, at least Sabres got pretty high ownership on him, given the lack of cheap options. No. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong guy. It says 9%. I think Hancock is climbing up too. So I don't really, you said at the top of the show, I don't really want to go below Shane Baz on this slate. I want us to find some cheap stacks that are in good spots and play these top pitchers.
Yeah. Baz is a 3-pitch pitcher. He's got his best pitch is a knuckle curve, which he's throwing around 25% of the time. He's got rid of the bad one, the changeup. That's, I think, the biggest thing for Shane Baz. I kind of suspect, Steve, that he maybe merged his slider and new cutter kind of into one pitch, and then dropped the changeup and became a 3-pitch pitcher, which I do think is kind of the best general approach for a pitcher with good stuff, is to throw the 3 pitches. So, I'm sure it'll all backfire at this point, but
I just like a young, talented guy who's going through some struggles makes a meaningful change,
And honestly, we're looking for something, right?
Yeah.
We're looking for something that maybe the public doesn't quite know. Listen, I'm really not trying to toot my own horn here. I get plenty of stuff wrong. But if I missed a change like that, I guarantee almost everybody else did as well. And they'll claim that it will be shown in projections. That's not how projections work. They're not changing the pitch type stuff. It's more of a long-term view of it. So bump to Shane Baz for me for sure. And I think at this point, probably likely to be in the top 3 of the own pitchers that I play tonight. All right, let's get to Cincinnati and Boston. This game, if you look at, I don't have access to all Weatherman's, game previews for weather, but I suspect that this game maybe was given a green light or close to it. I'm a little worried about this game. I mean, the same weather system and storms that have already postponed the Mets game are headed right to Boston. By the way, I look at it from the radar on google.com, and maybe that will break up before it gets to Boston, but that's not typically how it works in my 12 years of experience forecasting weather here for MLB DFS. So I'm a little worried about this game, partly because Boston's my favorite stack of the whole slate against Brady Singer. I love lefties, power lefties against Singer. He just gets crushed by lefties. You can look at the pitch tags for reasons why, but the fact remains, you just see a lot of very, very good swings, hard contact against Brady Singer. He's going to be prone to home runs. He always has been. And,
this Red Sox lineup's cheap too right now.
Yeah, especially over on FanDuel. Almost got home with Red Sox stacks on FanDuel yesterday. But yeah, Duran, Anthony, Toro, Abreu, Meyer. They got some youngsters that are, I think, in Anthony and Meyer still underrated. I think these guys are going to be very good hitters. They're not yet, but these young talents can turn the page at any point. We see it all the time with young hitters like them. So I really like this Boston stack. I want to play it, but I'm going to have to watch this weather all the way up to lock and potentially, play it even more if it seems safe or pull the plug if it doesn't. I just don't know which way I'm going to go until, an hour and 45 minutes from now. I'm not playing Singer regardless of whether fits at 5,500. I think you can make the case for him, but this does look like another really good hitting night in Fenway. Very similar to yesterday where we saw Crochet have one of his worst, maybe his worst start of the year. And then, of course, the Red Sox put up 13, 14 runs themselves. So I don't love playing pitchers in this park when the weather gets friendly for hitting, which if the game does play, it will be hitter-friendly weather tonight, Steve. So I'm looking at mostly offense here. I don't know if I'm going to pull the trigger on Fitz, even if it looks okay. What are you doing, Steve, with Reds and Red Sox?
Yeah, I put Fitz in the playbook just because of the price tag and the Reds' offense not being great, especially outside of Great American. It's not something that I'm running to the window to do. More of I think if you're playing a bunch of lineups and you want some Dodgers, I think he is cheap for the matchup. The weather's scary though. I'll probably end up getting off of him. But yeah, this is a weather spot where we're just not going to know until really close to lock, I think. So I think we talk about it as it's going to go off. And then if we have to pull it, we pull it. Great spot for Boston here for all the reasons you said. Been playing lefties against Brady Singer for years now. Played against him last start when I believe it was against the Yankees when things didn't go great. But really like Boston here. Big time total on Saber. The projections are good. The price tags are great, especially on a slate where we are going to want to pay up a pitcher. Really, really easy team to get the bats that you want. Only two guys in the entire lineup are above 4K. And, you got a 3-hole guy, 2,900, Toro. You mentioned Mayer. Both those guys are multiple position guys on DraftKings as well. So really, really good stack here against Singer. And then, the reason that I don't want to use Fitz is because he hasn't been very good. I think you could easily play Reds bats. They're a bit more expensive overall just because you do have 6K Ellie. But like them getting Austin Hayes back in the middle of this order is just big for them. We saw him have a good weekend. So I do like, the top 4 and then like Spencer Steer here for the Reds. If we get the green light that this game's going to play. If you remember, we'll be in the Discord giving our final thoughts after the show for, if we're playing the game or not. But yeah, I'm with you. I currently have Boston in my core. And I would like to keep it that way. So hopefully, these storms break up a bit, but if not, we'll have to find some other cheaper teams on this slate because I do want to play Yamamoto. I do want to play DeGrom, so hopefully Boston, but it's all weather dependent.
I mentioned this a lot on weather games, especially ones that look really good for offense, which we both like this game in that regard. But I do think the best way to play these weather games that are, questionable to play is don't mix in 1 or 2 guys. Don't leave them in your pool, as people say. To me, why would you risk ruining a lot of teams with 1 to 2 players from a game that could be postponed? To me, I want to go all or nothing, right? So it's definitely a little bit easier to do when you're hand building like I do, but I'll probably have, Steve, assuming, kind of this game at lock looks questionable, 1 game maybe with a 5-3 Red Sox Red stack, and then the other 4 lineups not playing it at all, right? So you could potentially benefit from both sides of the equation. You get the lower ownership on your big-ass game stack, and you don't risk the majority of your lineups, which, people are going to mix in these guys a little bit too much. So that's the way I play the weather games. But and I do think it's the correct way to play it. But anyway, hoping to stick with these Red Sox bats in particular, who look like they're in an awesome spot. But I did update the radar as you were talking, and my confidence is diminishing, and I think looking at it, it's likely to continue to diminish. So we'll see. We'll see on Reds and Red Sox, but it is one of those games where I'm going to be holding out until we get an official postponement or it just looks too bad to play. But I am hoping to play it, and I'll pull the plug at the last minute if need be. Again, easier to do when you're hand building. You can kind of get out of there in a hurry. Harder to do, of course, when you're 115 or MMEing like I know some of you guys are. Let's get to the Angels and the Braves up next. Kenny Powers wannabe Grant Holmes shoving it right on my ass, Steve, showing me who's boss. Grant Holmes, I'm not a believer in him, but he's proven to me wrong, at least recently, on a pretty awesome run, really all season long for Grant Holmes. I think he had a couple bad starts to start the year, but it's been almost nothing but solid starts for Holmes, which has his price all the way up at 8,700. He does get a pretty good matchup here against the Angels, high strikeout matchup at least. Some power too, but certainly the strikeouts could be there for Grant Holmes. I'm stubborn, so I probably won't buy in here at the highest price point of Holmes's career. So it's a pass for me, I think, on even on a tough pitcher slate at 9,700. Tyler Anderson, I don't know. I just really never play Tyler Anderson. Probably going to stick to that tonight. I do like these Braves bats. This is another game that has potential weather issues, but I feel way better about this game's likelihood to play than I do the Reds and Red Sox game. So right now, I do think this game will play. Looks like very scattered storms in the Atlanta area. Maybe a delay in here somewhere, but I would be pretty surprised at this point if they weren't able to get all 9 innings in for the Braves and the Angels. What are you doing here, Steve? Angels and Braves in Atlanta.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, 9,700 for Grant Holmes. Only 600 less than DeGrom. I did, before the Mets game got postponed, I did have Peralta in my pool. I think people who were kind of in that range, will go up to Holmes here, man, because of the strikeout prop, right? So his strikeout prop on DK right now over 7.5 is plus 110. So they're expecting basically 7 strikeouts here for him. He's been good all year. I think I'm going to add him to the pool, but I'm not comfortable playing him on a main lineup. It's just a really, really good strikeout matchup for him against the Angels. Fourth highest strikeout rate in baseball in the split. I'm with you on Holmes, where I don't think this is going to be a long-term thing. Where he's a dominant 10K pitcher.
It feels a lot like Bryce Elder from last year to me.
Yeah. So I'm kind of reluctantly having him in the pool because of the slate and because I was going to be over on Peralta in that range. I think the Braves bats are the best plays in this game by far against Anderson, who, skirted regression for a full season and a half, has gotten absolutely destroyed lately. He gets crushed by left-handed bats, so same-handed bats, 424 WOBA allowed this season to lefties. I think Matt Olson, one of the best plays on the entire slate. And then DC, if you look at their lineup, teams haven't really done this that much against Anderson. They loaded it up with every left-handed bat they have. They got Drake Baldwin starting, both Verdugo and Harris starting.
So they got Verdugo and Harris in there. And now we got some players.
So loading up on the lefties.
You stack Verdugo and Harris at the bottom of the lineup, Steve. Go ahead.
Look, we're looking for cheap bats on a slate where we might lose Boston. Tyler Anderson, some of the worst metrics on the entire slate, finally coming back down to earth after, just kind of outperforming metrics for last season and a half. He's now allowed 4+ earned runs in 5 of his last 8 starts. He's got the second worst Sierra, second worst xFIP on the slate. I like the Braves here, the Braves bats. If the Storms are going to be around but not hit Atlanta, that's awesome for bats here too. So I'll have some Holmes, but I'll have a bunch of these Braves bats. Holmes now projected second highest owned pitcher on the slate, by the way, DC.
Yeah, there's variance in all aspects of life, and especially when it comes to sports and small samples. Like if you go with your buddy to the blackjack table and you lose every cent and your buddy, quadruples up, it doesn't mean he's a better blackjack player than you. It just means he was luckier over a 20 or 50 or 100 hand sample. And you do see that in baseball too. I think Tyler Anderson's a good example of it, running hot for a while until he's not. And I think Grant Holmes will prove to be that, just like Bryce Elder was for the Braves yesterday. Yeah, we got more people excited about Verdugo and Michael Harris. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you're not using any Holmes, do you have any interest in the Angels bats? The issue is price tags have gone up, especially at the top of the order here. I
mean, Trout, I think would be the play. They did get Neto back. But you're paying for him. It's tough to get there, I think, even if you're not using Holmes. Holmes is expensive enough where I don't think you need to necessarily get the leverage, if that makes sense, because just a mediocre outing for him would potentially hurt a lot of people's lineups. So
true.
I don't see myself going to many Angels bats here, but certainly looking for that leverage, it does make some sense. And I'm with you on the Braves. I do think they're going to have a big second half of the year. Maybe tonight against Tyler Anderson will be a part of that. Your neck of the woods, Steve, we go to Wrigley Field for Guardians and Cubs. Looks like, no weather concerns here. This game is going to play. Going to be a nice night, 80 degrees, some humidity. Nice summer night in Chicago. Winds will be blowing in here, but should play roughly ballpark neutral. Our friends at Ballpark Pal do have this game as the worst hitting environment on the slate. Yeah, sometimes I think, go just a little too far. I don't think we should be overly afraid of using hitters in Wrigley when it's 80 and humid and 5-mile-per-hour winds. But that's me. Two pretty good pitchers here. Lefty Matthew Boyd going for the Cubs. I think he is on your radar a bit. I did look at him. I think he's okay. Now that we've especially talked about Shane Baz, I'm going to go Baz over Boyd, which was kind of a close call for me. And then Gavin Williams, who I really like his talent. I still do. I do think he's capable of big outings. And, by the numbers, at least a good pitching weather spot. So maybe, but I just don't like picking on this Cubs team too much. So I'm probably going to pass on Gavin Williams. Probably going to pass on both these pitchers, but I don't see a lot of offense I like either. I think this one in Wrigley, Steve, will be one that I end up lower on the field all the way around. What are you doing, Steve, with Guardians and Cubs here?
Yeah, I like Boyd some. He's been so consistent the whole season. I think he's more of, like you said, a floor play to Shane Baz's upside in that range. I liked him more earlier in the day when it looked like it was going to cool off, with the winds blowing more in at Wrigley. I think we're going to have some crosswinds there, so not as strong of a weather spot for him. I will say left-handed pitchers have been just dunking on Cleveland all season. Especially the back half of this lineup, really, really bad. 27th weighted runs created plus, dead last in ISO the last 30 days against lefties.
There's a lot of these teams that have just horrific back halves of the lineup.
Yeah.
It seems even more so than in previous years.
Yeah. So it's a good spot for him. I do think this is about the highest price tag we'll see for Boyd. His upside's kind of capped at $9K. That's why I was going to be playing a bunch of Peralta and Shane Baz at that same price point. I'll be Baz over Boyd. I'll have some Boyd because the matchup is so good. And then, no Gavin Williams for me. Just too many walks, too volatile.
Yeah.
But it's also tough to get to these Cubs bats that you want on a slate where we're going to spend up at pitching. Like, we got 3 guys, 5,500 or more. It's just not going to work in the context of the lineups that I do want to play. So no bats for me in this game, and I'll have some Boyd because of the strength of the matchup.
Yeah, really can't run on Gavin Williams either. Just 2 stolen bases allowed, 6 caught stealing. Gavin Williams holding runners, which maybe would have got me a little bit more on the Cubs, but just that right there probably enough to move me off them. Kind of on the fence about the Cubs coming into it, but mostly going to move off of Cleveland and the Chicago Cubs. Next up is Baltimore and the Texas Rangers in the Lifeless Dome in Arlington, Texas. I think I've never been there, but it's about the worst place to watch a game on TV. Even
yeah, like the angles super far away too.
That silence, and I can't stand dome sports in general. But we'll save my rant for another day. For this one, Jacob deGrom looking like he's in a pretty good spot. He is clearly, for me, the best pitching option on the day. He's expensive at 10.3K, and he's not the same pitcher that he used to be, not quite. Those of us that have been playing DFS long enough remember deGrom was like, can't miss 30-plus fantasy points every single time out. What do you win? 2-3 Cy Young awards in a row. Yeah. He was awesome. Couple of injuries, but he looks really good right now. I've talked about it a lot with deGrom. I've been on him for most of the year. His stuff grades out still very well, even if it's not the same it used to be. And he's another one, Steve, where I actually think there's more strikeouts coming for deGrom. And this is a general baseball point, but we are on a baseball show, so it seems like a good time to make it. Some of these, I've talked about it with Schwellenbach, where their control is so good that sometimes their strikeout rates, I think, are almost artificially disinflated. I'm not even sure that's the right word, but lower than they should be because they throw so many strikes, right? Because they pound the strike zone. And I think deGrom is one of those where the strikeouts could start coming for him. I mean, we saw it, I think it was Sunday night. Schwellenbach had like 12 strikeouts against the Mets. And on the other side, I think it's true as well. I'm not trying to call you out here, Steve, but like what's the Brewers starter? Is it
Mizorowski?
Yeah, where his walk rates look super high in the minors, and then they haven't really translated. I think it's because his stuff is too good that just nobody can even touch it. And so he just goes into all these deep counts in the minor leagues, and then he gets to the major leagues, and it starts to turn around for him. So I don't know. Long story short, I think deGrom is potentially even better than his numbers show, and his numbers look good to me. So deGrom, my SP1, he's the first guy in my lineup tonight. There's enough value at hitting and whoever you want to go with SP2, I think, to fit deGrom in. So yeah, I'm in on deGrom. Not playing the Orioles bats. Pretty simple, cut and dry for me there. Brandon Young going for the Orioles. Curious your opinion on him. I didn't come away with a super strong conclusion other than I'm going to continue to play a lot of cheap Corey Seager, who seems to be swinging the bat like his normal self. I think one of the better one-offs on the slate, regardless of your opinion on Brandon Young. But curious where you ended up on him, because I didn't come to a real strong conclusion on Mr. Young, who we don't have a very good MLB sample size on yet. Steve, your thoughts here? Orioles, Rangers, deGrom, Brandon Young.
Yeah, on a slate where we're kind of struggling to add pitchers to our pool, I think deGrom at 35% is an awesome play. I'm going to be with. Yeah. I don't know. I think you can almost lock him on this slate. He's been so damn good. I think I'm
considering just a lock button on deGrom, and
the only thing is like the pitch counts below 90 and 6 straight starts, but he's also been going so deep in those games. I don't think that they're keeping him below 90. I think it's just he got through 7, and that's good enough.
When you get pulled at when you're winning 5 or 6-0 and 7 clean innings, and it's 89 pitches. That doesn't mean you couldn't throw 100.
Yep.
It just means they didn't need you to. And obviously he's got the injury history. So I do think he's, if he came out into the 6th inning with 86 pitches and needed 104 to get through the inning and was pitching okay, I do think that's possible for DeGrom.
Yeah, I do too. So, I mean, that would be my only concern here. And it's not something that I think is, an actual real thing that they're going to continue to do that. He's thrown 90 before this whole stretch. So, it's a green light spot for him. The projection's awesome. No qualms with using DeGrom on any lineup. I might play him on all 20.
Yeah.
And then, Young wasn't even drafted. Kind of a cool story to make the major leagues. The MLB draft.
It's got to be extremely rare at this point.
Yeah. So not a high pedigree guy. He's like a 40 future value guy on FanGraphs, and isn't really built up that much. So he came back on the 25th through 61 pitches, has really gotten knocked around. He's got the worst advanced metrics on the slate. He pitched pretty well in the minors, but I think he's more of a crafty, savvy pitcher than anything else. I would be in on Texas here. I'm trying to convince myself to get on Texas against him, especially if
probably smart.
Especially if we lose the Boston game. DC, just look how cheap this entire lineup is going up against a guy with a 7 ERA with terrible peripherals. If it goes bad, you get into this bullpen early. After the game went to, I believe it was 11 or 12 innings last night. They used a bunch of bullpen last night as well. So I'm coming around on Texas here. They have not done a lot lately, but that's driven these price tags down. Corey Seager, I think, one of the better plays on the slate. We don't have the lineup yet, but we should see some really cheap bats in the back half of this order too. So I think Texas is interesting if you want to play like DeGrom, Yamamoto, which I think is a great way to go on the slate. We'll talk about him later. I'm just trying to find spots where, there's upside 5-man stacks where I can double spend a pitcher, and I'm coming around on Texas as the day goes on, especially if we lose the Boston game.
Yeah, makes sense to me. That's enough to take me off of Brandon Young entirely. Wasn't planning to go there anyway, but I'm out on that. And the one thing I'll say about Texas is there are a few of these teams where they just have one player who is so far above everybody else that I feel like I can, in the long term, benefit more from just taking the extremely good one-off over the full stack. Seager would be one of those. Jose Ramirez often qualifies. O'Neal Cruz, Ellie De La Cruz. So yeah. I'll have a lot of Seager. I don't know how many full-on Ranger stacks I'll have, but yeah, just a kind of a general approach thought there with the Rangers. And yeah, DeGrom, sign me up. I'll go down with that ship tonight if need be. All right, let's move westward to Coors Field. Looking like a very weather-friendly game here in Colorado, although maybe the winds have shifted just a little bit. But regardless, this should play like a very strong hitter's park tonight. Going to be hot and humid. And, of course, it's just Coors Field in general. We've got Chase Dollander going for the Rockies, who actually think in a different organization and a different park. Dollander might be having a decent season with this organization, and in this park he is not. He's been hit very hard, especially at home.
Yeah.
Kind of a weird spot where, this all right-handed Houston lineup. I don't love it against righties, but you just got to make an exception in Coors Field. Dollander hasn't been good against righties either, and of course you've got the Rockies bullpen behind him. So, yeah, the Astros I think are just too cheap.
Is this the cheapest you've ever seen, like a full team in Coors?
Yeah,
I know they haven't been great, but
no, but it's way too cheap. You can easily get the full stack of the pitchers you want. which of course will be what a lot of people do. So I guess it's up to us as to advise people on whether or not they should do that with their own lineups. Don't have a good answer for that. Yeah, maybe you do. Colton Gordon, I've played a lot of him this year. Honestly, I mean, you can look at the game log. It's mostly been pretty good games from Colton Gordon, who's been very cheap. Not his stuff, but his skill set has kind of grown on me. And on a slate where I don't like pitching, you're giving me, again, I think a low-owned pitcher that I've played a lot of and with good success against the pace-eating Rockies. I feel like I almost have to be back in, but I don't feel great about Colton Gordon here. I'll be honest. One of those where I'm kind of all over the place, being pulled in multiple directions with Colton Gordon. I'll probably end up. What's his projected ownership? It's got to be low.
0.54.
Okay. So if I play him on one of my 5 teams, then I'm, I believe, not a mathematician, but 40 times the field. I'm sure he'll be higher than 0.54. So that's probably enough for me on Colton Gordon. I do kind of think these Rockies bats, the right-handed power, make some sense. Yeah. So
they're cheap too.
Probably playing both sides of this one in multiple ways. Steve, what are you doing with Rockies and Astros here?
Yeah, earlier when we said that we didn't really want to go below Shane Baz, it's because we're talking about Colton Gordon, Jeffrey Springs, and Emerson Hancock on this slate. Yeah. I mean, going back to what you started the game with, one of the cheaper lineups in Coors that we've seen. It's good hitting weather. To slate where we need cheaper bats, highest total by a run and a half here. I feel like this spot is usually projected to be higher owned than what I'm currently seeing. Ownership projections can be wonky, but I want to be over. I feel like Houston in Coors is the type of team. I know you always say it, DC, if it's a contact team, that's fine in Coors. You can really rally there.
Yes.
The big outfielders.
That's what it's best for. Is just a ton of good contact. Yep.
Which is how Houston scores. They're not going to lead the league in home runs with this lineup, especially they just lost Pena as well. So it's cheap. I just think they're the perfect type of offense to have big rallies at Coors. I'll be playing as much Houston as I can handle. And then, the Colorado right-handed power. Gordon's been good, but, crafty lefty in this park. I think you can pick off bats. I don't think I want to fully stack the Rockies. The Houston bullpen is good behind him. And but, guys like Jordan Beck, Estrada, Hunter Goodman's expensive now, but he's deserved it. Bretton Doyle, Toglia, guys like that, I think are really interesting for, 1, 2, 3 mans here.
Even looking at Gordon's underlying stats, which again, it's 32 innings against righties and 8 total innings against lefties. He's been dominant against left-handed bats.
Yeah.
Against righties, though, allowing a 237 ISO so far against, and now obviously strikeout way down. Doesn't walk anybody, which is, I think, fine against the Rockies. I mean, if you're playing these guys, you're kind of chasing the home runs anyway. Yeah. So, I think that Rockies.
You got nine righties in the lineup too for Colorado.
Yeah. Yes, sir. How many? There's been a couple Rockies slates this season, but not nearly as many as there should have been in Coors Field. But maybe this is one of them. And I think I don't know. Maybe I'll play my one Colton Gordon share, but not going to feel great about it, even if I do.
It's not the best spot for him. Like if he was facing a team that, started 4 lefties,
Yeah, but when the pace leaders strike out 15 times, I will be kicking myself for not playing a 0.5% owned pitcher who I've played pretty much all his starts. So
true.
Might have to eat one on the chin with a Colton Gordon.
We actually just got the Houston lineup as we were talking about that game. Looks normal. We got Dubon in over Pena. That was expected. They're starting both catchers here. Cooper Hummel's in there. Yeah, it's just a dirt cheap lineup for a Coors game. Great spot.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it'll work out tonight, but I'll give my shout out. I think Cam Smith is going to be ultimately the best hitter in this lineup. It's already replaced Christian Walker. They kind of swap spots.
Yeah.
Cam Smith up to the cleanup spot. I think Astros see what they have and see some of the data that I'm seeing on Cam Smith. So he is, if you're playing one, the primary target for me on the Houston Astros. Let's move westward for the Diamondbacks and the Giants. Zach Gallen going for the D-backs here. It's been a struggle for Mr. Gallen. Has not pitched well. ERA close to 6 on the year for Zach Gallen. I've been talking about his decline for a while, stacking against him. Yeah. I don't really see it turning around for Zach Gallen anytime soon. I still don't love the Giants, but maybe I should because the D-backs have a bad bullpen too, decent place to hit in Arizona, and I just don't think Zach Gallen is any good anymore. Another pitcher who I don't think was quite as good as his numbers showed for a while. In any case, Giants looking interesting. The problem is they just have not done much for a long time, this Giants team. So a bit of a leap of faith with them. And then Hayden Birdsong going for the Giants. I was kicking myself on that last slate. I was recommending against playing a chalk Hayden Birdsong, but
that was the Marlins afternoon slate, right?
Yeah, I played a lot of Kyle Stowers, I think, in that one, but really should have got in on Miami there. Just a mistake that maybe if I was using an optimizer, Steve, I wouldn't have made. Maybe I would have bumped up those Marlins, got some more Marlins in my lineup. But when you're hand building, sometimes you make a mistake and don't end up with the full 5-man stack. In any case, I think this pitcher is overrated. I think he's not stacked enough as often as he should be. And I do love stacking this D-backs team. They get Josh Naylor back in there tonight. And specifically that top 5, Perdomo, Marte, Pavin Smith, Naylor, and Suarez. We know this team can do some serious damage. I think they're, I assume, low-owned. And if so, should be a good contrarian stack here. What are you doing, Steve, with Giants and D-backs?
DK's got to do something with this Pavin Smith, Josh Naylor situation. For the
just give one of them outfield like you do Otani, right? He doesn't actually play outfield, but whatever. Who cares?
Yeah. One of my first bets of the day was the over in this game. I'm on both sides for bats. Haven't talked about a lot of spots that I love for bats outside of Coors, Atlanta. I really like both sides here. I think you and I probably play the Snakes more than most. That's a side that I'll go down with the ship on. This is a great lineup. Even
play them all the time, and we'll continue to do so.
Yeah, even without Carroll, it's a deep lineup. We got cheap guys in the back half, and like you said, Birdsong just not able to consistently get left-handed bats out. The cheap guys in the back half of this order are lefties. We get McCarthy and Thomas in there, helps to balance out. I'm trying to find these cheap bats so I can play the top pitchers on the slate. Both of these teams have really cheap bats throughout the lineup. So I'm on both sides here. You talked about how things have just completely unraveled for Zach Gallen. 43 runs in his last 51 innings. Getting owned by the White Sox, pretty tough scene. Career low fastball velocity in that last start too, DC, for Gallen. And then you mentioned as well, their bullpen has been bottom 5 for pretty much 2 months now. So I feel like the Giants are really good plays here overall. It's never comfortable 5-manning the Giants, but I'm going to get there today just because I do want those top pitchers. And I don't think we have that lineup yet, but at least a third of it will be mega cheap, easy to get up to the guys that you want with the pitchers that you want. So this is a game where I love both sides, and I'm not playing either arm here.
Yeah, I got to get back in. I got to get more in on the Giants against Zach Gallen. He strikes me as, if you just watch him pitch, like he's like a confidence-based pitcher, right? He's kind of relying on like outsmarting his opponents and the location and command and putting his pitches exactly where he wants. That's a dangerous skill set to rely on. And when it goes south, I think it can really go south in a hurry, like we've already seen.
Yeah.
But, you're just not going to get your confidence back. You're second guessing everything when you got an ERA close to 6. Your stuff's not great to begin with. I think the Giants make a lot of sense, even if we don't love them in general. In this spot, low owned, I think we got to take a shot on this Giants team. So 100% with you on that one.
I'm surprised that these teams aren't projected to be higher owned, given how good the spot is on both sides. Honestly,
it's because the public loves both these pitchers. They think Zach Gallen is still good, and I don't know why, but Hayden Birdsong seems to have way more credibility, or just people think he's better than he is. I don't really see it with Birdsong. So in on both these offenses in Arizona. Last 2 games to talk about. KC and Seattle are up next. This one, of course, in Seattle. There it is. There's my lineup card that was slowing me down. 2 uninspiring right-handers here. Emerson Hancock, who we both begrudgingly admitted we were considering on this slate at 6K, and Michael Lorenzen. Yeah, Michael Lorenzen on the other side, who kind of like him too. It's just both of these plays. I think you'll agree with this. Park, matchup, and price plays. They're cheap. They're in the best park, or one of them, and they're in pretty good matchups. Different types of matchups for Hancock. It's the lack of run scoring that the Royals put up, not necessarily that the strikeouts will be there. What is his K prop? I assume it's around either 3.5 or 4.5. I haven't
3.5.
Yeah, that's a tough click. 3.5. Lorenzen's, I assume, is slightly better, but his runs against prop is probably slightly higher. I almost never play Lorenzen, but I do think he could get you 5 or 6 strikeouts here in this particular matchup in Seattle. So he is still on my list. Again, somewhat reluctantly. I mean, and then you obviously against these pitchers, both these offenses are at least in the discussion, but really don't like this park. Where'd you end up, Steve? Royals or Mariners?
These are guys where when I first started the playbook today, I had both of them on. And then as I started to try to come up with things to positively write about them, why they were on the playbook, I pulled them off. It's just
it's what I said. It's price, matchup, and park is the 3 things. So it's not about the pitcher themselves.
Yeah. You're playing the park, and you're playing, run avoidance with Hancock, and, I don't know. I don't really like it. I'm hoping that I don't have to go down this far. Like I said earlier, I want Shane Baz to be the cheapest arm that I play on this slate. And then, the one-offs on Seattle I think are interesting. Power against Lorenzen. Obviously, the big dumper hit another one last night. He's got 33 home runs. So awesome. But don't really love anything in this game. I think I'm just going to kind of avoid it and maybe have some Hancock.
Did you know the big dumper uses the torpedo bat only occasionally?
Really? Like in certain spots?
Yep. He seems to know the spots, which I think lends more credibility to perhaps the ability to continue at I don't think he's going to hit 70 home runs, but if he's got some sort of bat tell on the pitchers,
well, hopefully he hit 70 home runs, because Stats posted that 80-1 MVP bet before the season in our Discord.
Yeah, Camporeale, man, what a season for him, and the Boom Report, as it should, has him as essentially the best catcher play every single day if you can fit him in. I try to get as much Camporeale into my lineups as possible. Certainly that has paid off for the majority of the season.
He just has such a huge edge over other catchers, right? Like, how many times this year has he outscored the second best catcher by 10 plus?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point of the report is when you look at, he's not competing. Like Aaron Judge has got to compete with, the Acuñas and all the other stud outfielders of Ohtani's of the world. Rallies. His competition is much, much less, and his production is similar. So, of course, it makes sense why he is such an awesome play each and every day at the catcher position, just as a one-off. Just don't even worry about the rest of Seattle. Get Camporeale in there as one of your one-offs, and you can get a 30 ball that most people don't have. And you don't have to go down with the entire Seattle stack. So it makes a lot of sense on a nightly basis, including tonight. White Sox and Dodgers. Last game we'll talk about here. Yoshinobu Yamamoto going for the Dodgers. Been really good this season. I thought was pitching maybe a little bit over his head at the beginning of the year. I think that's kind of proven true over the last 5 or 10 starts, but still a very good pitcher. I'm not denying that part of it. Just not, I don't think, on the same level of guys like Skubal and Crochet, Wheeler, some of those guys. I don't think he's quite there, but a very, very good pitcher nonetheless. And a good matchup here, of course, against the White Sox pitching at home. This team has been, the White Sox, I think, a little bit maybe better than their general perception, but still a match target, no question about it. At the very best, they're a bottom 20 offense in baseball, and they're probably worse than that. So good matchup for Yamamoto, no question about it. 10.8K, there's no discount here, right? You're paying like the full fright for Yamamoto. I do definitely prefer DeGrom if choosing between the two. I do think double spending is totally a viable option, but if it's just one or the other, for me, it's always going to be DeGrom. And then Shane Smith, a pitcher who I know I like a little bit. I think you do too. Had a pretty good start to the year. 2 really, really rough starts in a row, though, for him. Only made it 2 innings in his last one. Now he's got to go into LA to take on the Dodgers. It's hard to get in these players' heads, but it seems like a rough place to go coming off 2 of your worst starts of your young pitching career at the MLB level. So Dodgers, I think, got to at least be in consideration. Steve, what are you doing with Dodgers and White Sox here?
Yeah, that's why I wish we had cheap pitchers that were in play on this slate. Because, Dodgers against a guy who, it might be coming apart at the seams with the bad bullpen behind him. At these ownerships, man, really enticing. That's why I'll have some Emerson Hancock and some Jeffrey Springs. It's not exciting, but, I could easily see the Dodgers, putting up a massive number here. Price tags have come down on everyone outside of Ohtani across the board. So really like the Dodgers here. I'll be forcing some Dodgers 5-mans in my lineups. And then, agreed on Yamamoto. You're paying $500 more than DeGrom. It is a much better matchup. 6th highest strikeout rate for the White Sox, dead last in weighted runs created plus, 29th ISO over the last month, whereas DeGrom faces a Orioles team that is healthier than it has been all season. So, you're paying up for the matchup here, but you're also getting a pretty significant ownership discount as well. I like Yamamoto a lot in this spot. I'm going to try to double spend, I think, on my main lineup. I'm going to be playing a bunch of these guys here. He's a home favorite in a great spot. Agreed that he's not in that, Skubal tier of pitcher. I don't think anyone in the world is on the Skubal tier of pitcher.
Sure.
But it's the walk rate that has come up for him a bit since that first month. Scares me a bit, but just such a clean matchup for him to, give us 25 plus in this spot. So really like him. Love the Dodgers. Wish that we had, one of our usual gem cheap arms to play with them, but it's just a weird slate. So I'll be taking some chances on the shitty cheap pitchers just to get some Dodgers in there.
Scrolling back through, I was kind of hopeful, Steve, that we would come up with some cheap pitchers to play. I think we went the other way.
Yeah. So we added Shane Baz. I got rid of Fitz.
Yeah. And we didn't add anyone cheap. I mean,
maybe Springs. I think Springs is the best play below Baz overall, just because of the upside. Captain's got a good projection on him too, 14.3.
He did last start as well. No, so did I. So
I played him too.
Captain. I'm not trying to pick a fight with Captain here on Tuesday afternoon. I know better than that, Steve.
Yeah,
we're not going down that road today. But yeah, the more we've talked about this slate, the more, much to my chagrin, I'll have to play like a coward and pay up for pitching. Always a painful scenario to have to deal with. But I think it might be the road to success tonight, as it is more often than my advice would lead people to believe. Steve, let's get to our final conclusions here. We just talked about pitching, but we'll do it again anyway. Might mix in a couple of cheaper pitchers, but I'll be honest. I think I pretty much playing three dudes, and they're three of the most expensive five pitchers on the slate: Yamamoto, DeGrom, and Shane Baz are the three that I'm looking at, and we'll try to figure it out from there, I guess. But I think those are the three best pitchers on this slate. I think you're going to have a similar conclusion. Talk to us, Steve, about your final conclusion on pitching.
Yeah, same. Those three and Matt Boyd are going to be the main four that I play. I'm going to be over on all of them. Hopefully, people are not up to what we dug up today on the Shane Baz stuff. So I'm going to buy into that and play me a bunch of Shane Baz on this slate.
Rest assured they are not. If this was a Monday game log show, I would be mocked for even bringing up the mere mention of Shane Baz changing his pitch mix. Why would that matter, DC, when you can just look up the team totals? That's all you need.
Well, if we were game log watching, you would never have played him for his 35 last start. So
both ways. Can't play him after his 35 and must play him after his 35. So anyway, enough subtle shots at our good friends JT and Big T right there. Stack Steve, give me your top two tonight. What are you looking at?
Yeah, outside of Houston, I'm going to go with both sides of the Arizona game. We just talked about it. Two pitchers that I think we are well lower than market on. I like the over in the game. Bad bullpen, at least on the Arizona side. Cheap bats in the back half of the lineup that let us get up to the pitchers that we want. I really like both sides of that game.
Those all make sense to me. I'm looking at this weather radar, not report, weather radar for Boston. Looking kind of sketchy, but I like this team so much that I'm gonna try to hold out for this Boston team. It looks like the Storms could miss it. Like they're gonna go right around the city. Maybe, Steve, when we get this Red Sox game into play and we get some dongs off of Brady Singer. So I'm gonna add the Boston Red Sox to the mix. But I do think Houston is kind of tough to avoid. And then give me some Giants against Zach Gallen. That sounds pretty good to me as well. I think that's it. We'll get out of here with that. We'll be back, or the show will be back same time, same place tomorrow. Me and Stats will be breaking it down for you guys, talking the Boom Report, all that good stuff. Steve and I will be in the Discord over at Run Pure Sports answering questions, meticulously breaking out the magnifying glass for the Boston radar to see if we can stick with that game and hopefully coming to the right conclusion. And yeah, that'll do it for this show. Me and Steve will be back next Tuesday, me and Stats tomorrow, and everything you need, sports, baseball, and otherwise over at Run Pure Sports. Join us. For now, though, that'll do it. He's Steve Boyden. I'm DC. we're out of here.